Do you want to learn how to write like me? Well, you can't learn how to write like me. I am uncopyable, but I can teach you how to create an unmistakable writing voice of your own. So in today's video, I'm going to give you some rapid fire, quick tips that are going to help you become a much better writer and find your voice. But before we get to that, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you can get brand new videos when they come out. If you happen to be watching this on another platform, use the tools from that platform to share with your friends. Okay, the first thing that'll help you become a much better writer and have an unmistakable voice, stop pulling punches. One of the reasons why I've been so successful on places like Medium is because a lot of my contemporaries, they have things that they want to say and things that they believe, but they won't share them publicly. I will. I'll go there and I'll say what I really mean. And the point isn't to be polarizing on purpose, but if some of your true thoughts are polarizing, that's going to get a lot of people interested. Half the time it's because half the people who read your stuff hate what you read. But that creates a debate, that creates comments, that helps spike the algorithm. And hate reads pay just the same. So you can hate my content all you want, as long as you're paying me. Tip number 2, if you want to differentiate yourself in a quote unquote saturated field, one of the things you can do is insert elements into your writing that no one else can copy, right? So I often tell you that your blog isn't your personal journal and you shouldn't just ramble on and mumble stories about your life with no point to it, but you can weave in bits and pieces of your story into your advice, right? So a lot of you who've probably followed me a long time, you know different aspects of my life about how I used to, get drunk and party all the time and would smoke a lot of weed and got in trouble with the law and dropped out of school. And I kind of shared the things that happened to me in the life lessons that I learned from those things to help make those points a little bit more salient. So use your personality, inject yourself into the work without making it all about you. Another way to stand out is to draw from different pieces of different sources of information, right? So there's this quote from Murakami that says, if you read the same books that everyone is reading, you're gonna think the same things that everyone else is thinking, right? So a lot of people in my space that I write primarily in the self-help space, all they do is regurgitate stuff that they read from other self-help books. But I read widely. I read about economics, I read philosophy, psychology, biology, relationships, romance. I read obscure random blogs that most people don't read, like The Last Psychiatrist or Slate Star Codex or Chateau Heartiste, right? These different obscure areas, right? I read from left-wing thinkers, right-wing thinkers, centrist thinkers, right? So I'm combining different pieces, and that's why I create a message that has a little bit of a different feel, because I don't just read the main staple pieces of information in my niche. Now, this is a specific writing tip that talks about the introductions and the conclusions, right? So if you want introductions that hook people, focus on writing really, really outlandish, ridiculous opening lines, right? So for example, here's an opening line from James Altucher, one of my favorite writers. I had to learn how to get 100 prostitutes to like me in 5 minutes or less. Here's another opening line from Penelope Trunk. I took a vase, smashed it over my head, I was bleeding, broken glass was everywhere, and then I took a picture. So at minimum, you're at least going to want to see or read, what the writer has to say next. You're like, okay, where is this story going? And then you want to achieve the same effect with your conclusions, right? So most people don't really focus on the main body content of your piece. They read it, but they'll have a tendency to skim and gloss over it. So the introduction hooks them and gives them the feeling that what you have is worth reading. And then by the end, it's going to be the last thing that you left them with. So those bookends are really key. And in order to get a conclusion that works well, a couple things you can do is, it's called the motivational rallying cry, right? So you go out there and you tell your audience how your information is going to change their life. You tell them what they can go out and expect to do next in the world after reading your stuff. So that's one thing you can do. Also, summing up the information can be a good way to close your post as well. So if you have a list post and you have 5 points, go back through and reiterate those points so the reader retains some of that information and it feels like they read your entire post and they actually remember more of it, even though they forgot the specific words themselves. You can also prompt people to do something. You could prompt them to ask a question, right? So if I do a list post about books that I like to read, I usually ask people, oh, what's your favorite book? Leave it in the comments below. That creates engagement on places like Medium, where people commenting helps stimulate the algorithm so more people want to read your stuff. One way to get really, really, really good at writing introductions and conclusions is after you write the first draft of your blog post, chop the intro and chop the conclusion and rewrite them every single time, right? So that way you're focusing on those bookend areas of your post, the pieces of the post, that most people are reading anyways. So if you get really, really good at those sections by rewriting them, you retain a lot more readers and a lot more of them will come back. Another editing tip that works really well is taking the time to read your articles out loud, right? So they say to write like you talk, and if you read your articles out loud, you'll figure out whether you're writing like you talk, and also it helps you catch these little weird grammar gaffes and strange sounding phrases that you can't tell sound strange until you actually say them out loud. This is really important for writing books. This is something that I suggest that you absolutely do if you're writing a book, especially if you're going to end up putting it in an audio book format anyway. The next one, you guys have heard me talk about this over and over and over and over and over again, but I have to include it because it's just such a magical technique at getting better, and that's using James Altucher's 10 ideas technique, right? So I personally use it to come up with headlines. One of the major sticking points for writers is writing headlines that people want to click. And if you don't write headlines that people want to click, no one's going to click, so no one's going to read, right? A lot of people have fear of writing clickbait, and fine, if you don't want people to click on your articles, don't worry about it, right? But writing 10 headline ideas per day is going to help you get so good at writing headlines, right? I've had the students who take this piece of advice to heart the most, these are the ones who are writing viral articles on Medium that are getting 50,000 views, $2,000 a post. I have multiple students who have done this recently within the past 30 days of shooting this video because they practiced that technique. The next thing that you can do, regardless of what genre you write in, is to read books about copywriting, right? Read books about marketing, read books about persuasion. Sean Platt, who is a very successful serial fiction novelist, credits a lot of his success to learning how to write copy. He worked in marketing prior to that, right? So what that taught him is how people think. It taught him how to get inside people's heads, because really when it comes to copywriting, marketing, and persuasion, a lot of the work is done up front in understanding who your reader is, understanding what they want, understanding what their pain points are, understanding what frustrates them, understand what they hope to become, right? So you can sprinkle those elements into any form of writing, right? So that's how a lot of people tell me that when I'm writing, it seems like I'm getting inside their head. It's because I've taken time to get inside your head before I even sit down to write. And that's what I teach students in my program. I go through a very extensive audience research process so you know exactly who you're writing to and what they want, so it's much easier to communicate with them. So those are some quick hitting tips I'll leave you with for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell, leave a comment, hit the like button, etc. If you're on any other platforms, make sure to share as well. There are links to a bunch of cool stuff. There's a headline vault that has headline templates you can use for any niche. There's a free Medium course there. There's a paid Medium course there that'll get you right to the heart of the information you need to know. Check out all that stuff, and I'll see you on the next video.